Godzilla, my friend, we've got to talk. You've had quite the journey, tearing down buildings, stomping through cities like they're made of sand. But let me tell you, there's another way, a better way. Redemption is calling, and it's time you listen. Look, I get it. You're big, you're strong, and people kind of panic when they see you coming. Trust me, I've seen how crowds react. It's not much different from what you're used to. But here's the thing, size doesn't define your purpose. You may have scales thicker than a Roman soldier's armor, but that doesn't mean you can't have a soft heart underneath. You're not too far gone, Godzilla. No one is. Even for a giant lizard who breathes atomic fire, redemption is always within reach. Now let's talk about some of the, let's call them learning opportunities you've had. Remember Tokyo? Of course you do. It's kind of hard to forget the time you practically flattened it like a pancake. Not your best moment, I'll admit. But here's the good news. You've got room to grow. Literally. The universe gave you all that height, but I'm here to help you work on your character. Imagine Godzilla, you walking through a city, not to destroy it, but to protect it. It's all about a change in perspective. You see a building and think, should I crush that? No. You think, how can I make sure that building stands strong? Or, how can I stop that other monster from messing it up? That's redemption. Taking the things you're known for, your strength, your power, and using them for good. You know, even Samson, one of the strongest men ever, had to figure this out. Sure, he had his moments of smashing things, pillars mostly, but in the end he used his strength for a greater purpose. I'm not saying you need to tear down a Philistine temple, but hey, maybe you could start by keeping a few skyscrapers upright. Baby steps, buddy. Baby steps. Look, Godzilla, there's nothing wrong with having a little, how should I say it? Dramatic flair. But let's try to tone down the collateral damage, okay? Maybe when you feel the urge to knock over a building, you could try something else. Have you thought about lending a hand? Instead of stomping through traffic, you could clear a path. That's what we call a hero move. I've seen what you can do when you're mad, but what if you used all that energy for something good? Let me tell you, I've seen people, and yes, I'm including giant radioactive lizards here, turn their lives around from much worse. Remember the story of Saul? He was a guy who, quite frankly, was on a bit of a destructive path himself. He was hunting down my followers like it was his full-time job. But after one conversation, just one, he turned everything around. Became Paul, one of the greatest apostles. Now, I'm not saying I expect you to become a preacher, Godzilla, but I'm telling you that transformation is possible. You just need to be willing to look at yourself and say, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have stepped on all those cars. It's okay to make mistakes. What's important is that you learn from them. I'm talking about repentance here, owning up to what's been done and choosing to walk, or in your case, stomp, in a new direction. I can already hear you asking, but what about all the destruction I've already caused? Can that ever be undone? Well, let me tell you something amazing. Forgiveness is real. Godzilla, you've probably stepped on a lot of toes, literally, but forgiveness is bigger than any building you've knocked down, bigger than any bridge you've destroyed, and it's not too late to start fresh. Besides, think about how much people would appreciate a Godzilla who helps instead of harms. You're already a legend. Now it's time to become a legend for something good. Imagine the headlines, Godzilla saves the day. Godzilla protects the planet. That's the kind of legacy that lasts. And trust me, I know a thing or two about lasting legacies. Also, I have to say, Godzilla, there are more constructive ways to express frustration. I've been there when people tried to turn the temple into a market. Sure, I got upset. But did I destroy the entire city? Number, I overturned a few tables. There's a big difference. Maybe next time you feel the urge to smash a building, you could start by, I don't know, turning over a car or two. Just a thought. Maybe throw it into the sea. Don't look at me like that. You know you can. You could even make it part of your new redemption arc. Godzilla tosses obstacles aside to help people. It has a nice ring to it, right? And let's not forget, every good redemption story needs a bit of humor. I know you've got it in you. After all, how many times have people seen you rise out of the ocean and thought, well, there goes my weekend plans. If you can make them laugh while turning over a new leaf, they'll love you even more. Maybe instead of roaring and sending people running in terror, you could try waving. I mean, sure, you might still scare a few, but it's a start. Look, I'm not saying this is going to be easy. Changing your ways is never simple, but you've already got the hardest part down. You exist, and existence is a gift, even when you're 300 feet tall and breathe radioactive fire. Now it's just about making sure that existence counts for something more than destruction. And don't worry, I'll be with you every step of the way. I've guided people through tougher challenges, and hey, you're not the first one with a bit of a chaos streak. You might be big, Godzilla, but so is the power of redemption. And if you ever need a reminder, just remember, the same strength that can topple buildings can also lift others up. The choice is yours. Godzilla, let me ask you something. What's the point of having all that strength if you're not using it to make things better? I mean, you're practically a walking force of nature, but nature has its purpose. You've got the power of an earthquake in your footsteps, and that could be terrifying, sure. Or it could be something incredible, like a protector, a force of good, a literal guardian of the galaxy. Well, maybe we'll stick with Earth for now. Let's take Samson again, for example. The guy was strong enough to tear a lion apart with his bare hands. Sounds like something you'd do, right? But here's the thing. Samson didn't just use his strength for destruction. In fact, his greatest moment wasn't when he was breaking things. It was when he stood for something greater than himself. He used that strength to help free his people, to defend the weak, and to make things right. Sure, he had his moments of recklessness, don't we all? But he found his purpose in using what he was given for good. Now imagine this. You, with all your power, could do the same thing. Instead of using that atomic breath of yours to torch a city block, you could use it to stop wildfires. Picture it, Godzilla saving forests. It's all about using what you've got for the right reasons. There's this saying, to whom much is given, much will be required. And Godzilla, you've been given a lot. Strength, size, even a cool roar. You've got everything it takes to be a force for good. Think about it. If Samson could take on entire armies with just a jawbone, imagine what you could do with those claws of yours. You could build, you could protect, you could be a real hero. And I'm not talking about the kind of hero people fear. I'm talking about the kind of hero people love. One that stands up for the little guy. Well, the tiny guy in your case. Someone who uses their power to help, not to harm. You know, there's this other guy, David. Just a kid when he took down Goliath, who was basically the Godzilla of his day. The difference? Goliath was using his strength to bully people, to make them afraid, David, though? He had a slingshot and a whole lot of courage. He stood up for the people who couldn't stand up for themselves. That's what made him a hero. Not his size or strength, but how he used what little he had to make a big difference. Now, don't get me wrong, Godzilla. You're no David. You're more like Goliath in terms of size, sure. But you've got something even Goliath didn't have. A chance to change. You've got a shot at using all this power you've been blessed with for something bigger than yourself. Instead of tearing things down, you could build them up. You could be the one people call on when disaster strikes. Here comes Godzilla to save the day. Let's be real. There's something kind of poetic about a giant lizard saving a city instead of destroying it. Think of all the ways you could use that size and strength for good. You know those tsunamis you sometimes cause when you come out of the ocean? Yeah, not great. But what if instead you stood in the path of one? You could literally block it with your body. People would cheer. They'd say, "Thank goodness Godzilla was here to stop that wave." It's all about perspective, my friend. You've been known for destruction, but that doesn't mean that's all you have to be known for. It's like a tree. At first, it's just a seed, small, easy to miss. But over time, it grows, and eventually, it becomes a towering oak. People don't just remember the seed, they remember the tree. Right now, Godzilla, you're the seed. But with a little guidance, my guidance maybe, you can grow into something truly great. Something that stands tall not because of fear, but because of respect. Remember the story of Jonah. Now this guy wasn't exactly a giant lizard, but he was running from his purpose. And after spending a little quality time in the belly of a big fish, hey, maybe you've met that guy. Who knows? He turned around and did what he was supposed to do. He saved an entire city. Godzilla. Just one man. Imagine what you could do with your size and power if you turned things around like Jonah did.